welcome back to our show. Joining me is a man who needs no introduction, Dennis Gibb, president of Sweetwater Investments, financial investment managers and financial planners. Dennis?
Yes, sir.
What do you like to put down the garbage disposal?
Just about anything. If I don't have to haul it out to the garbage, I'll put it down the garbage
Right?
disposal.
It's so much easier.
But, you know, I don't put half a pound of pasta down there. I eat it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't let it go to waste. I mean, but I do put lemon peels down there because it does stink after a while.
Yeah.
I don't care how, as it gets older, it's going to stink.
Now that Steve's left the studio,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, you're like, oh man, it is interesting to think about the amount of stuff you put down there, and you know, keeping on this food theme, there's a lot to do with economics and food, and you being one of the economic minds. What do you see with food and the economy?
Well, I think one of the things you got to realize is that everything in our business, everything that happens creates an investment opportunity of some sort. One of the things that I think people are noticing if they're looking is when they go to the supermarket, when they go to buy food, how expensive food is becoming. If you go and look at what a box of cereal costs, it is the most expensive protein you can ever buy. It's $12 a pound for protein from cereal. It's only $3.50 or $4 in a steak. And the reason is that food prices go up, and right now the real pressure on food, and this links all together, is in cereal prices, in cereal grains like wheat, barley,
You're talking
corn.
about like wheat checks, Wheaties,
All that stuff.
you know, shredded wheat.
Almost everything you eat, your kids eat, your pets eat, has grain in it of some sort. Either it's wheat, it's corn, it's barley, it's sorghum, it's whatever it is. It's all in there. And
Sorghum.
Sorghum, rapeseed. How's that? There's
Man.
one called rapeseed. There's actually a futures market called Canadian rapeseed.
Wow.
I don't have no idea what it is, but it just sounds
let's
cool.
buy
It's
some.
like hog bellies, pork bellies. That's bacon. Anyway, so this is not a market I know a lot about commodities, by the way. I read it and I have a good time with it. But anyway, food is essential. And so you see the CPI number, the inflation number comes out and it says there's no inflation. But then it always it says excluding food and fuel. Including food and fuel, prices are up 2% or whatever. Well, the point is that as long as you don't eat or drive a car, you're fine. You have no inflation. But if you're eating,
And energy, or heat your home, or turn
right,
your lights on.
Yeah, you're fine. So here we got energy prices. You got food prices going up. So the cereal grains, all these grain products are a real driver of food for a couple of reasons. One is it's so heavily used. You extract stuff from grains like gluten and stuff like that, which is used for thickening other products and whatever. Also, it's a driver of one of the most important items in the world, beer and distilled spirits, because they're all made from one of those grains. And,
You looked at me like I was going to do a little cheer.
Hey, well, listen, I didn't name my son after a bottle of scotch.
You are right.
Yeah. Good call, by the way. I just didn't think of that one, 1975 when mine was born. So one of the things you have to look at is what's called the stock to use ratio, and this is the amount of grain that's left over every year from the harvest. And what I would go through the calculation, but I know that a lot of people in Milton and places like that with a lot of cholesterol or a lot of chlorine in the gene pool wouldn't understand. So anyway, basically what it is, it's what? Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Anyway. From 1960 to 1999, the stock ratio, the carryover was about 17% of the previous year's harvest got carried over. From 1990 to today, it dropped to 11%, and now it's 5.63%, which is the second lowest on record. So what's happening is that we're getting more demand for the food. Now, we're also in the middle of a drought. Now, some people are saying it's the end of the Mayan calendar and the world's going to end. Other people saying it's global warming. Other people said George Bush has caused this problem, whatever. But whatever it is, we're having droughts in all of the principal grain growing regions of the world. Russia, the United States, South America, all these places. But at the same time, we have all these people in India and China and the developed world who are starting to consume more food, and more importantly, they're consuming meat, which is basically just grain converted into animal protein. So what happens is,
It's such a nice way to talk about animals.
well, yeah, listen, the PETA people would be mad at me talking about animals at all. You know? Of course, you know what PETA stands for, don't you? People eating tasty animals. Anyway, sorry. It's Christmas time. What do you expect?
Yeah,
Right? We're all
sure
going to go out and
is.
slaughter turkeys here in a couple of days. I mean, come on, this is great. Anyway, so when you have less grain being grown, the farmers, the people who raise livestock, they're paying more for the grain. Less grain means higher prices. So these guys who have cattle on feed, they have to pay more for the grain. At some point, raising those cows becomes economically unprofitable, and they start to cut back their herd. Well, that's been going on. The livestock herds now, pigs, all that stuff, are at all-time lows. So if you go to the store and you look at meat prices are going to go up, and they're going to continue to go up simply because there are less animals coming to market. And then now we're starting to see where the U.S., we've always been independent on food, we're starting to export more and more food overseas just simply because they'll pay more for it. So also, emerging nations are terribly inefficient in the way they grow food. They don't have the modern mechanization, they don't have the irrigation and everything else. So one of the things that drives this is drought. Right now on the Mississippi River, they're asking the Corps of Engineers to open up the dams on the Missouri to put more water in the Mississippi because barges are being stranded because there's not enough water. Most of that stuff that comes out of the Midwest, grain and all that stuff, goes by barge. That's the cheapest way to move it. And if the water's down, it's going to cost a lot more. So now transportation costs have gone up. All right. So now I've scared everybody, right?
I'm scared. I'm actually going to the grocery store after this. I'm buying it out.
Well, let me scare you a little bit more. Almost all the emerging...
You send me to Costco.
Yeah, all right, exactly. Almost all the emerging world, the nations of the emerging world, subsidize food. So in Egypt, for example, the government subsidizes bread so it won't cost more than a fixed amount, which means they have to buy grain in the world market and just take the loss. Okay. Now, if bread prices start to rise, there's something else that happens. It's called riots, and that was part of what happened in the Arab Spring was that prices were going up. And what this means is what this all comes to is this: when an emerging nation has to spend more money for food or energy, they have less money to invest in other places. That takes liquidity out of the financial system. One of the theories for why 2008 happened was that as energy prices rose, you remember in 2007, 2008, energy went up to $140 a barrel. The emerging nations were having to spend more money on energy. And so they withdrew money from the market to pay for that. As a result of that, it put pressure on the financial system, and the weakest link was the real estate market, and it blew up. So the question is whether or not this rising prices, and this is a multi-year issue, is whether this is going to do the same thing, whether it's going to slow down the economic growth of both of countries, of various countries. And if it does, it'll slow down the emerging world first, because they have least ability to recover from it. The developed world, because we're efficient, we will continue to have enough food. It might cost us more, but we'll have enough food. So let's talk about the investment implications here, okay? You can't, unless you want to buy farmland, you got to play agriculture a different way. You have to play it through fertilizer, you play it through machinery, or you play it through water. So you've got people or equipment. So you got John Deere makes those big cool green things,
Yeah.
I mean,
And there are some big ones.
Oh man, they're big.
They're huge.
Yeah, big, powerful
Yeah.
things. Oh my God, they're great. Just green, yellow deer. Oh, it's just great. And they're expensive too.
Yeah.
Some of these things are $250,000 and up. So you got them, and you got some other people making this stuff too. Caterpillar makes it, but John Deere is the most identifiable. Then you've got the fertilizer makers, and there's different kinds of fertilizers. There's potash and all this stuff. But the one that has to be
a lot of potash around here.
Yeah, a lot of potash around here. A lot of, could be more. But I have a joke about that, but I won't tell it.
Okay.
Anyway, but there's one fertilizer that has to be applied every year, and that's called nitrogen. And you can apply nitrogen in different ways. So anybody who makes nitrogen for agriculture is going to enjoy a great market. Now, where does nitrogen come from? It comes from natural gas. What's in great supply now and in low price is natural gas. So these guys are going to have a competitive advantage in making this stuff. They're going to be able to sell this stuff to the farmers. Now, the farmers are making a bucket of money on this stuff. Don't let farmers tell you they're poor right now. If they're doing this thing right, they're making a lot of money. So the other thing you look at are companies like Monsanto. I know this is controversial, but Monsanto makes genetically altered foods that can withstand drought, they can withstand insects and stuff like that, and they increase the yields of crops. Now, a lot of people are out there saying, well, if you eat this stuff, you're going to grow 3 heads or 2 arms or 4 arms or whatever.
And they had a whole thing down in California, Prop 37, I
Yeah.
think, about disclosing this.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it happens or not, but there's a lot of things they told
I
me.
haven't seen any 3-headed people yet. So
Well,
that's
I
good.
don't know. You go down to Tacoma a lot.
Oh, I'm going to call you Mr. Politically Correct.
Yeah, well, so anyway, so your fertilizer companies. Now, the other one, the more intriguing one that I think is this. In the United States, we're using a thing called precise or precision farming, which is where these tractors are actually controlled by global positioning satellites, so that they're farming exactly the right area at exactly the right angle and everything else. There's a company called Trimble Navigation that makes all this software that powers these GPSs. That's a company that's going to do real well, and this is a technology that will spread around the world. And then the final one is a hard one.
That sounds like the technology where cars are driving themselves around at some point.
Listen, I'll tell you, we could use that in Seattle, given the way these people drive. 90% of the people in the world think they're above average drivers.
Isn't that interesting?
Figure that one out. Of course, there was a study one time that said that 1 in 4 people on the road in the United States have a mental problem. I would say it's more like 90%. I would say it's like 4 out of whatever. Look at how they drive. So anyway, what's going to happen? The trigger one to play is water use and irrigation and pumping and things like that. And just the other day, a company called Gardner Denver, which makes irrigation and water pumps, was bought out at a 35% premium to the closing stock price. So there's somebody out there hunting for this stuff. So there's an investment opportunity to be made here. There's no need just to pour your money into food. What you should do is figure out a way to invest around these global type of operations. So the message is your Christmas turkey is going to be available. It's going to cost you a little more, and so will the booze you're drinking with it.
I love it, Dennis. Thank you so much.
Right.
As always, Dennis Gibb from Sweetwater Investments. We do have to go to break, but we'll be right back. You're listening to Brassionomics.